Welcome, welcome, Real and Raw with Lynn, and you are in the Pacific. You are in
Yeah,
Cali.
I'm in
Welcome.
I'm in Southern California. Yeah, and
How
I have my different venue in space.
that's no, this is awesome. We're spontaneous. We get things to get done, and I just thank you for finding time in your busy schedule right now to
Yeah,
do this. This is just super, super fun.
it's
Um,
it's definitely it'll take me a few days to get acclimated from Central Standard Time to Pacific. So
I what I think is funny about this is that you actually went from Wisconsin, you went through mountain zone where I'm at, doo, so you're always an hour ahead of me. Now you went an
I'm an
hour
hour
behind
behind.
me. Like,
Yeah.
what's up with that?
Well,
So tech
I guess if you're a future predictor, you could win me over because you're 1 hour ahead.
so the funny thing about that too though is technically we're on at the time I normally have my other show.
Yeah.
So that's freaky deaky. That's, just like doing our show, it's like, it's always what Eastern time, Pacific time, all these different time zones that we're always dealing with who's where, and who's on first.
I mean, it's like, man, it's only 10 o'clock here. And I'm like, wow. So that means I need to get my workout in at like 7 to 8 and whatnot. Otherwise, it just like it throws off the whole day. You know what I mean?
But
Oh,
dude, it's 11 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock where you're at normally.
right. Yep.
So you shouldn't be just waking up. You're gonna have such a hard time probably when you go back. It sounds like.
Well, I mean, it's just different where it's like, okay, I can't, I need to be conscientious more about what time it is, the normal time where it's like, okay, it's always 2 hours behind and it's just going to play tricks with me for a little bit, but we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. So today it sounds like we're sharing our best stories of
Yeah, and
trust in our lives.
another one of those finger pointers at me because I made Lynn do homework. So yes, yay for me.
Yeah, but who said I did homework or
Well,
didn't?
well, then I guess I'm carrying the show.
Yeah, there you go. Well, no, we'll just have you start. Because I mean, I have
Oh,
a few.
oh,
Well, yeah, yeah. You ask the question and you get to start.
so you're gonna make up something, is what you're saying?
Well, actually, I have quite a few stories I can think of, but it just I'll bounce better off from you.
Okay, so my first story, and it's what, and I think that we need to acknowledge all of our viewers and everybody that tunes in. We have our normal loyalist and anybody that catches us on the replay. Lynn and we don't have a script. I just have a couple like little stories on a post-it note. You can't see that because it's screwing. It's actually a green piece of paper, a post-it note, but we don't have a script. But we are going through relationships, the topic of relationships, and the first week was getting our parameters straight. The second week was like about likability, and this week we're talking all about trust. And what better way to talk about trust than through stories? And so trust is going to look different for everybody depending on if it's a personal relationship, private relationship, business, whatever. And for anybody that catches our replays, we are truly grateful that you're here, and hopefully you find something that you can apply to your life. So my first story would be my best friend Matt. I've known him ever since Boy Scouts in 8th grade, and he's an only child like myself. He lives a couple hours away from me back home, and what is there to not to say? I mean, we grew up together. We had the same dynamic in the household. Hardworking parents, nuclear families, and we can go any amount of time, and catch up and just shoot the crap. And there was a time in 2000, I think it was 2009 though, where we stopped communicating because he did something that to me that was not right. And I just pulled the cord. I'm like, that's not how you treat a friend. And it was something related to my business, and he helped me. And it's just like, I can't believe somebody did this. And they thought of that was their action, right? And it wasn't anything malicious or whatever. It was just something that they didn't feel even though they gave their word to it, that he wasn't responsible, or he didn't feel like, even though after he declared it, that he should uphold it, or he should make sure it happens. So it was like 7 years later, because he got married in, I think it was, what was it? Years after that, he got married, and he called me up the year before he got married, and he goes, "Hey," and out of the blue, I haven't talked to him. It's like cold turkey, like we didn't talk, and we reconvened, and I could definitely feel that he just want to put our past behind us, and move on, move forward. And it felt so great because it took me a little bit, because he just left such a pain in my heart that I'm like, okay, is this authentic? Is this real? Or is this just somebody trying to disregard the past and just move on without completing it? And we completed it and we moved on. That somebody made a mistake. There was feelings hurt, and to get that out, but to just be straight up where somebody's willing to walk across the coals, so to speak, to make it happen. And that the absence of having somebody not in his life was not as great as him completing it. You know what I mean? That there was a want and need that we had to be back in each other's lives. And I was a part of his wedding. I helped him create it. And he's got 2 children now. And he said, he goes, when I get married, because he divorced his first wife, but he goes, when I get married again, you're going to be my best man. And he said shortly after his first wedding that he goes, "Man, I made a mistake. You should have been my best man all along." And, it didn't make me puff out my chest, and, none of that. It was just interesting to hear, where it's like, wow, that I matter so much to him in that capacity, and we don't talk as much as we should. And that's partially on me, because I see the reminders pop up in my phone. But then life shows up, and then I don't reach out. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny, but the reason why I had a hard time with this one doing homework, because truly through the whole show this past week and last week, I shared a lot of stories of trust in my life.
Yep.
Like somebody, so it's going to be a quick recanting, as well as the fact that, I had somebody that trusted me, including the fact that I was surprised, after having it in my head that I was, somebody that was flighty, or not, people didn't know me. They didn't know if they could trust me. And so realizing the value that people put in me and trusted me, I always cherished that, and I always respected that. And that meant a lot to me. Like, who goes and gets a car and gives you a car loan for 5 years and trusts you're going to pay it on time?
Mm-hmm.
And just, trusting that I have friends that when I'm, in a vulnerable spot, they've been there for me. And the trust of, for years, I didn't tell everyone how abused I was or the things I went through. I come from a Generation X, where sharing, things that happened to you were not something you shared. So,
Right.
the shame of all the things I ever been through, and just trusting those stories with only a few, that was very huge for me. It helped me over the years, but it was just something that, at different times, I probably felt like I was going to die if anybody ever told what I told them.
Mm-hmm.
It was, so to me, trust is something that I didn't share or felt comfortable with many. And so when I found those few that respected me and knew and didn't, banter it around, that meant a lot to me. So, I've had some really close friendships that just understand that, when you fight the fight as many times, and it was the trust too, this is very deep right here, but it's my vulnerable time. So here I am, vulnerable year.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was just like, a lot of people didn't know why my first marriage. I got married at 19. I was young. A lot of people didn't even know I was pregnant. A lot of people didn't know I lost a baby. A lot of people didn't know that he cheated on me after the baby. We broke up from that, broke the trust. Second marriage, here is at 1990. And I'm married to somebody after we have a baby, find out he's interested in men. Now, 1990, who the hell do you tell that your husband that you think is so great to me is talking to you about his attraction to the opposite or to the same sex? Like, again, the trust was, the importance was, I got drugged behind a vehicle on that. My daughter was being kidnapped. Mentally, he was just not a stable guy. It was just very traumatic. Who do you trust to tell people? Instead, people look at your record. You've been married at 19. You've been married at 23.
Mm-hmm.
I move away 2 years later to Maryland, and, you can't stay around where people are just going to judge what they don't know.
So with all of those, with all that heartbreak and abuse and all of that, where does the best come in? You know what I mean?
The best stories, or
no. Where does the best come in those stories? You know what I mean?
oh,
Even though that they were negative things that happened to you, what did it pave the way for to make them best?
That paved the way for me to realize that the times that I don't think I can make it, or I can't recreate myself, or I can't be myself, it's allowed me to say, shit, I went through all that. I did it a lot in silence. I mean, I'm even going to say something my kids never heard, that I never even told anybody. But
Right.
I mean, I lived such a quiet, and I mean, I'm an introvert anyways, but seriously, people could tell me, I always felt comfortable when people had the kahunas to tell me their truths and trusted me with them, when I couldn't sit there and reflect to them that when they tell me stories, they had no idea the shit I was going through.
Right.
Because I looked at them as like, wow, you're bold enough to share your stuff. I can't do it. I mean, there was a time after I after I was getting divorced from my first husband, I felt like that was such a failure in my life that people didn't even know that we weren't even together. It took 3 years to get the divorce. But I
Right.
mean, it was one of those things, they didn't even know I was failed. I mean, I asked my dad if I could stay at his house, but literally I'd go on 81 and I'd go on a ramp off. I'd sleep at night in my car.
Wow.
I had my clothes in my car. I would go to work. I belonged to a gym because I was always working out, and I take showers there. I mean, like, I was pretty much homeless. No one knew. I never said this to anybody anywheres. But again, it was all my self pride. It was truly my pride that kept me from letting anyone help me or let anyone in, because I did have trust issues. But when people trusted me, with their stories and their life, I really admired the fact that, one, they trusted me, and second, that I just didn't have the balls to do that back then.
Do you think, here's an honest question for you, Lynn, do you think you'll ever be able to trust and again, if you want to find a life partner? Or
You always bring that shit right around the circle to me. No, actually, it's one of
real and
those
raw,
things.
that's what we're all about here.
That's right, absolutely. That's what I signed up for. But no, it just. But again, I know that my story would help a lot of people knowing all these things that I went through. However, for me, it was, that ego, that pride. But to me,
Hold on. The question was, do you feel like you'll ever trust again? Yes or no?
yeah, I trust. Absolutely. I always trust people. I always give
No, no,
everyone
no,
the
no,
benefit
no,
of the
no, no,
doubt.
no. Hold on. Will you ever allow yourself to be vulnerable to trust another person that you may want to create a life with?
Oh, absolutely. But I'm not
Okay.
there yet.
Well, okay. But I'm just saying
Oh, of
how the
course.
mind works is that
Oh, of course.
we want to, especially if it's something where there might be a little accountability. We don't know what it's going to look like. I'm going to have to confront whatever there is to go out on a limb and take a risk.
Oh,
All
yeah.
of those things are bundled in that, but it still comes back to
Oh,
you
yeah.
will or you won't. And there's nothing wrong either way.
Exactly. No, you're right. But what I'm saying is, I'm still enjoying just actually voicing things like I did today about
Right.
living in my car. Like, nobody knew that. I was going to college, and like, yeah, I didn't want anybody to know that I wasn't living with my husband no more. So that's what
Right.
I chose to do. I chose to stay in my freaking car. Matter of
Now,
fact, one time I think one of my friends could have known that this was true because I was at her house visiting, and when I was at her house visiting, actually, I was taking um, a friend of mine's her schoolwork. She was in my class, and she needed schoolwork. Well, my other friend was in my car, and I misjudged a step and I walked back to the car, but by the time we got to this other friend's house, my foot was broken. I broke a
Wow.
metatarsal bone. Didn't know it. She didn't even know it till then. And I'm like, oh, great. So needless to say, she was like, she's like, hey, let me help you. And she's like, I said, yeah, I have my laundry in the back. And I had like all my clothes back there. But yeah, no one figured it out. So it was just the way it was.
Do
But again,
you like those moments that of life where you didn't want to share? Do you find peace in sharing that now that you're a human being that's been through things and you've had to do some things that you didn't want to share with people, like living in your car? Do you feel that you really care about what people think about that anymore because it's your story?
no, I don't
Good,
think.
good.
I don't, but I also don't feel like there's many people that have slept or been homeless too. Matter of fact, I dated Ricky for 10 years, and Ricky doesn't even know that story.
Wow.
Like,
Okay.
and he would always talk to me about being on the streets and everything. And I'm like, you say that like a badge of honor. You talk about it. And I'm like, and I say to myself, I'm 50 years old and I can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
It was just because it was the imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was like, I need to back up and say, some of my boyfriends were back in the day were engineers, and they just thought that they could always just be the rescue guy in my life. I wouldn't have had to go through the things I went through if I chose them, kind of thing. So it's the persona. So I didn't want you and I didn't want that life. But it's so I think it's all those things that came to fruition of, you know what, I'm still gonna do my life, but I don't want you in it, kind of thing. So
I think what I've witnessed is that, when there's moments that you don't want to share with people, and eventually if they do find out or whatever, after you've overcame them, right? Going through them or whatever, you don't want anybody to know. But
yeah,
then after, maturity and learning and how does things pan out after,
yeah,
they become your story, and it's everybody has stuff in the world.
absolutely. And like you said, what happened 33, 34? No, actually, how Lisa, well, 38 years out of school. So what happened 38 years ago, it doesn't defy who I am now. It
Right.
doesn't do anything but, like shit, I got to write that book, and I think it's going to be as big as the Atlas Shrugged book, 1,200 freaking pages, people. And so, it's just,
Lynn unplugged.
yeah. So, it's one of those things where, no, they would make a really good story for sure, but I can't believe how much I was so into that mental state that other people put me in.
Right.
And I know a lot of people suffer from
Well,
that.
without even knowing it, you allowed yourself to go into it too.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's the part that we don't realize is that we gave our consent to that
Absolutely.
regardless if we are aware of it. No, it
Exactly.
doesn't mean that we're not accountable. It's just that we were in an age or vulnerability or we wanted to be wanted, whatever that is, that we would not ruffle feathers or we didn't want to rock the
Hmm.
boat, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of times I do wish that I would have stuck up for myself and not
Mhm.
just settled,
Right.
and settling. So when I just look back at that stuff now, it doesn't bother me to share it. But it's like I try to go back thinking, what the F was I thinking? Like, I had no idea that because somebody asked me to marry them, that I should marry them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just,
Right.
you
It's
know,
To me,
it,
I find it, there's a couple examples of people in my life where, they've had things happen to them and it's like going through it, they would not tell anybody. Right.
mhm.
But now it's like it just everybody has some stuff.
Oh, yeah, for
But
sure.
but and here the to me it's a distinction. Number one, they learned from what happened to them and it created who they are now. Number two is does what happened to them and who it made them become, are those in an alignment, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm referring to by that is that if somebody was down in their luck and they were down and out for the count, are they, when they've emerged throughout life, where's their heart? Where's their effort? Where's their actions? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
is it like an arrogance or ego?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that they were on hard times, to me, to do a polar opposite, that just doesn't jive with what I would think somebody that was, that was at their wit's end,
Right.
It's like, or do they, build up people? Do they have the utmost love in their heart? Like it's the opposite, but it's not an extension of some, because they were at the bottom of it, right? And then to go to the other side, is there examples throughout our world that have done that? Yes. But I think the distinction is that you're, like I've said in other shows, you never forget where you came from, regardless of where you go, what you do, how successful, the money in the bank, whatever that is. When you remember what it was like, and you're just another person that emerged, right? You don't need anybody to pat you on the back or whatever. Right. But those lessons that you learned made you what you are. But you're a survivor. You overcame those things.
Yeah.
And now because of what you learned, you can honestly say those things to people. And it's not for pride or pity or any of that. It's, here's where you can be and here's where you can go.
Absolutely. Like, when I look at the fact that I stayed in all these different situations and things I've been through in my life, and I say, the fact that I was able to get out of my own way, and that's what it had to take every time, and to take the chance to get to the next thing, because people don't understand that people are, oh, my sister-in-law said something. Our stories are all pieces woven. You go ahead. You can finish it.
Sure. Julie said, thank you, by the way, Julie, for tuning in to us today. Our stories are all pieces woven together to that make us who we are and going to be. We never know the end of our story. We just have to live and learn where we want to be tomorrow. 100%. Wow.
She said this earlier. She goes, "Hey guys, love you, sis." She goes, "They have to pass my inspection first. I'm never gonna have a guy."
She's your eyes and ears from now on.
Oh man, she'll be expecting to be like my brother Mark, and Mark they broke the mold with him. So there's far few in between gentlemen like that. But
and Julie, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Yes,
for contributing.
Absolutely. So
no, I'm going to go with my next one. Okay. Is that customers, any customer that I've ever worked with on a wedding or corporate event. And I think that when I got started, when I was really young, I didn't know what I didn't know. But now it's like, for somebody to literally give me the keys, to their wedding success, and just say, hey, here you go. We trust you. We believe in you. Your resume and your credentials, and you've served my family several times, or that kind of dynamic. It just puts me into a place of like, wow, I had no idea what I was creating. All those days and years of just working at it over and over and over again and being humble about it. It's beyond words about what that trust has given me. You know what I mean? What that looks like. And for somebody to just fully embrace their experience, that they work with me, we do the homework, to get the results that they want out of their wedding, or they don't even know what's available. It's hard to express in words what that is, because there's different people. They show up differently. They have different love stories, and their relationship is unique to them. So, but for all of that to be channeled in that, they gave me the keys to say, hey, here you go. Don't screw it up and make it happen for us.
That's a great feeling.
It is a great feeling, but I find that the distinction is that somebody that gets a big head about that, they're setting themselves up to fail. Because nobody's coming to a wedding to see me. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It doesn't make any. And Julie said, only the best for you. Said, oh yeah, yeah. She's gonna be like the dating police for you, Lynn. You know what I mean? Like,
You kidding? I think Brian is now too. I'm
yeah,
like, if you could talk to Brian, he's gonna put you through the ringer. I think you're on that
well,
list.
that Tinder Brian, I kind of ran him through the ringer a little bit. You know what I mean?
I
So
love it.
it's it's a really deep place to be, but it all has to, in my opinion, it all has to come from a place of humility that it's earned. It's not given.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
you have to prove it. You know, it's not like you do the proof and you earn it before you actually get the opportunity. It's not the other
Mm.
way around. That
Right.
if you trust me and you believe my word, which there may or may not be evidence and proof of, right, for an extended period of time or years, no, no, you get,
Yeah.
you got to show up first, and then with the possibility or the opportunity that that somebody wants to make that happen and they want you to be a part of it. And I there was several years ago that I had this one guy that's done some training through people I've done training with, and he reached out to me, and I'm aware of him, but it's not like I talk to him on a regular basis. And he goes, "Hey, you're the guy I need to talk to about relating to my customers better and to really really create relationships with them." I'm like, "Okay," and I said, "I appreciate that." And he told me who referred me to him, and I said, "So what is your intention by doing this?" Because to me, this is something I've done ever since the inception of my company, where this is a lifestyle. You know, is it always easy? No. Is it freaking hard work? Heck yeah, it is. But there's a payoff. And the payoff is how my heart feels when I acknowledge somebody for a birthday, an anniversary, a new house, a child, a new car, whatever that is. It's a lot of work. Are you able to do it for everybody? No, because you don't have enough, you don't have that amount of bandwidth to offer, right? And I said, "What are you doing it for?" And he goes, "Well, I need to raise some money. I need more sales." And I said, "I don't recommend doing it," because I said, "What are you doing now?" And he goes, "Nothing." And I said, "So if you're at least at a certain stature with your customers that if you do nothing, they perceive you this way, right?" But I said, if it's all for sales and it's not because you care about them and just want to acknowledge them with nothing else attached to it, if they see through what your true intent is, they're going to feel insulted. They're going to feel taken advantage of. And then all of a sudden they start lumping you in like all those other people that are just after the money, but there's no likability. There's no relationship. There's no trust, And I told them, I said, if that is your intention and all it is for sales, don't do it. And I told them because I said, none of what I do is for anything. I'm doing it because somebody's on my calendar. I'm thinking of somebody. And then all the memories of their day or corporate event or whatever come to mind. It's a precious place to be in, but it's got to be earned. It's not given. And
Absolutely.
we have I think the latest research is 5,000 plus messages about sales and persuasion and manipulation every day. Now, all of a sudden, now you're getting it from somebody that, you haven't talked to in several years, and now they're trying to come across as authentic. And all it is to get me to buy something, which is ridiculous. So I'm a very hard-nosed person when it comes to that, because I can snuff out when people are being unauthentic real quick. And it's like when I know what you're trying to get to, it's either you're doing it for me or you're doing it for yourself. There is no in between. And so that makes it very simple.
Yeah.
And to be in touch with your heart is the ultimate guide, because it's like, and the more you condition it, the faster it gets. And I just love it. Like every year there's wedding companies that advertise and do directory media, and excuse me, they send me inquiries, and they'll call them, then they'll email me. And I can just see how inauthentic these are.
Yeah.
They're reading off a cue card or something that they might have memorized. But then when they leave an email, it's templated. They aren't personalizing anything.
Yeah.
If
Automation.
it's automation, but they're saying the same thing. Like if I reach out to colleagues and I'm like, "Hey, did you get this email?" The only thing that's going to be any different is the name. That's it. And really, that's How many customers you got? Oh, a few. Okay. You couldn't do a personalized a message of something
Yeah.
other than just a template and, hey, buy my stuff. That's how it comes across. There's a better way. if you
There's
want to invest in that.
right. If you want loyalty, you need to be, receptive to earn that.
Well, and you have to be willing to step out from anybody else. You have to
Mhm.
be willing to be in your own lane, do your own thing. You're not you're on your own path, and the only person it has to make sense to is you. That's it. You have to be willing to set aside everybody else's viewpoint, why they do it, why they don't do it, and do your own thing if you're fully committed to it. Because there is a reward in it, and the reward is very plentiful. Is that your heart feels great. You love your customers, you know. Obviously, some industries and within business are not going to get to that point. But knowing that the wedding industry is personal by nature, how far can we take that? I mean, I talked to a prospective couple last night. I did her brother's wedding 2 years ago, coming up here in July, and I said, there is no limits to how personal your wedding can be. Like I shared this question with them last night, or this statement. I'm like, how ridiculous would it be for somebody to say, wow, that wedding was way too personalized?
Nobody's going to say that one.
Ever. Nobody's ever going to say that.
Never.
And so for me, it's just like to
What's
really
worse?
go ahead.
What's worse is when you go to a wedding and go, I didn't know they were into that stuff, or I didn't know that they're like that. I didn't know it was going to be like this. Because I've been to those weddings where I've heard people say that, like, oh, I didn't know they were, gamers. I didn't know, just a bunch of stuff.
Right. And so it to me, it's you're all in,
Yeah.
and you're either authentic or you're fake.
Yeah.
Now, the way I'm wired, and my buddy Scotty, from Dallas or outside of Dallas, is like I'm a very black and white thinker, right? And it's either yes or no. It's yes, I have a creative side of me, but when it comes to some certain things, it's like you're either being authentic and real, hint, hint, our name of our show, or you're being fake and confusing.
With a hidden agenda.
It's like, get away from me. Seriously, like get away from me if you have a fake agenda.
Yeah, especially like a lot of guys when they go dating. I mean, like they've got their agendas, man. Sorry to clump you in that, Brian, but I'm just saying, it's just, you got to be conscientious about that.
And then in preparation for a show, this ties in really well is that, my girlfriend and whatnot, when the story about trust there is like, when she was telling me like her experiences, like she gave up on all, internet stuff. She gave up on it because the misrepresentation, the catfishing, which I didn't even know was a term. Either I crawl underneath a rock or my priorities are elsewhere, but I didn't even know what some of these terms were. And as she was explaining this stuff to me, I could not conceive about how people just misrepresent themselves. How they give a false sense of identity and they pay for this service. You know what I mean? So they come across as misrepresented. They're not truthful. They're paying for this service. And what is their intention or purpose? And it just blows my doors off when she was telling me some of these things when we were getting to know each other and whatnot. And we'll reflect on once in a while, just of, the person looked a certain way on their profile, but then when they met in person, they looked nothing like them. Or they had some weird, hobbies, or just things that, what are they trying to get at? Like, do they want to meet somebody, or they want to just a weekend fling? Right.
Yeah.
And, it just sets it just blows my doors off that that's how people represent themselves. And so for somebody to be really authentic and truthful, that people got to do a double take this day and age, because because when somebody's authentic and real, they're going to show up that way all the time, every moment, 365, 24/7.
Yep.
And people may not realize it, but it's like, wow, that person is who they say that they are is who they are. And they don't waver from it. And so I think that how fast our society works, is when people look at somebody and they're like, wow, that person is an expression of who they say that they are in every given moment. And they don't waver from it.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's skeptical, in my opinion, is because that's a rare thing to do. Number one. Number two is that for somebody to check the boxes that somebody is showing up that way all the time, it doesn't happen very often in life, you know?
Yeah. They're surprised when they get the same thing like Lynn's Unfiltered 24/7. It's like, what the heck? Like you bring it
Yes.
up, you know? And I mean, that's just it. I like to share with people when people say they're in this situation or that. And, when my customers trusted me with, intimate relationships, doing the lingerie and the novelties and the fun stuff, and people would seriously open their hearts. I mean, their relationships were like in the brink of destruction, and to be able to have two, and then we're talking the man and the woman talking to me side by side, and
Mm-hmm.
me trying to help that relationship. It's something that every day I kind of miss, especially around this time of year, because I did that for 15 years. I loved helping people spice up their relationship, and it's just, I love being the middle person, because I go ahead and I see the little things that they misunderstand, and
Mm-hmm.
yet they got to figure out for themselves. But one thing I can let them know is that, look, they love you, you love them, you need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I had relationships where I couldn't communicate like that, because I didn't realize I didn't pick the right person that could communicate with me. So
Wow.
I'm very, very passionate seeing people to see if they can have that window of, it's just like watching a soap opera or drama. How many
Mm-hmm.
times does the people wait to tell the truth or to trust somebody with the truth? And if, I mean, okay, it's for TV or whatever, but the bottom line is if you hit the situation right away, you will be saving so much time for the future of where you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess at 55 now, I'm like, I realize that cut and dry is a lot better than the whole hoopla of the song and dance.
Well, and
And
why
so,
why do people got to hide it? Why do people why would they rather just like sidestep a conversation versus just keep everything at neutral or above all the time?
no shit.
That
I
there's nothing
mean,
in the air. There's no everybody
yeah,
knows what each other's thinking, and everybody's there's nothing hidden.
yeah, yeah. So, it's sad. And then there's a sad world where I've seen women who tried to literally lie of ever being abused
Mm.
or this or that.
Mm.
And it's sad because I've caught them in their lie. And I mean, there's just a few things about that when you've been through it and you talk to somebody else and they don't know what you're talking about, you're like, So it's right on
Right on.
authenticity.
Yeah, and
That
being
person's
personal is a win-win combination. And Julie,
absolutely.
you touch on something that is, I think, as a society that we're, who knows where it's going to be, but there's too many people in life playing small,
Mm-hmm.
and that I see over and over again, where we fall victim to standing out, being uncomfortable, in the norm, and we're held back by some intangible force or something that we're incomplete from our past or any of that, and we're like in the business world, are we're held back by the status quo, or we can't move away from it, or we have to be lumped together like everybody else, and it's like it's completely not true. But you have to choose that, because if you go with the programming of our world, you're going to be on somebody else's agenda versus having an agenda of your own. And
Right.
so there's very few things that I subscribe to. Technology, a lot of tech, a lot of performance type of stuff. I don't watch the news, none of that kind of stuff, because it has no bearing on what I'm going to do. If I'm alive, I have my own agenda,
Right.
and it just amazes me that, I've said this before, but I think it's a very powerful thing, is that there are three different types of people in this world: those that make it happen, those that watch it happen, and those that don't know what's happening. Okay.
Yeah.
There are three different possible responses for those types of people: something, nothing, or complain. Now,
Absolutely.
when we bring that, when we get a little bit more granular with that, out of those three options, there's only one option that's going to do anything in the world, anything. And that's the people that make it happen and that do something. They're
Absolutely.
willing to be chastised, criticized, downplayed. I mean, there's countless examples of leaders and achievers throughout our world that went against the odds. Gandhi, Jobs, Martin Luther King Jr. You know, they saw something that was greater than themselves. And
Absolutely.
if they could be the servant of that message or the contributor, that's the only thing that mattered to them. And this is a hot button for me because I see so many people playing small in that, and it's just this minutia of confusion, noise. It's just it follows you everywhere, and you have to make a concerted effort to stay away from it, or just discipline yourself that when you feel it coming on, you get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's going to be like a piece of Velcro. You're going to attract yourself to it.
I concur.
It's,
Absolutely. I mean, when people perceive the fact that, oh, this is an example of this person here and that person there, F all that. Be and do what you need to do. And especially if you're around those people that are all they doing is just talking about all this other stuff and not taking action. That's the biggest thing with me this year is, vulnerability and action. And the action of really getting out of my way and seeing things in a different way, saying, gosh, I do have story. I mean, like, sometimes my resume is like, we could sit here and both talk about excuses of this happened and this happened and this. They're all effing excuses. Those were all from, they were all consequences from your actions.
yeah,
Everything you do has, results. Things are going to happen by whatever you do.
yep,
It's just the way it is. And when you can't fess up that whole thing of taking ownership, plus what you're going to do about it, plus the fact that you feel that the excuse is the reason why not to go forward.
mm-hmm.
I mean, shoot, people, yeah, like I'm just sitting here and depending on my new doctors and whatever, it's like I'm seriously thinking of getting a knee surgery so I could go back to walking, which is something I used to love doing every freaking day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take some action on my part. I'm not looking forward to it. But again, that's I'm I'm not living my best life right now because I'm prolonging that fact, so I got to get over that. But again, it's if you don't look at and trust your own, and I mean, when you talk about best stories about your life, how many times was it till you had no choice but to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, and to go and say, this is what I need to do to get out of the shit you're in.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example is that I don't know when the moment was. I cannot go back in my brain, but it might have been theater school. It might have been acting school, but I want to be uncomfortable in the norm. I want to be vulnerable. Has it taken a lot to get that? Absolutely. Am I afraid of being a fool in front of people? Absolutely not. Because I'm going to keep showing up tomorrow, then the next day, then the next day.
And if anything,
and here's the beautiful part. I choose that, and nobody has a say in the matter.
And not only that, if you can't laugh and say, oh, I took that bad turn right, I should have went left. Oh, well, but now I know.
And one thing I found is that people that are willing to be vulnerable and talk about where they got into some stuff and how they overcame it, more than likely, whoever it is, especially if it's somebody that doesn't know you and they don't know how honest and open they can be, if you're willing to lead that conversation, they get to see that you're just a human like them. And then don't be surprised if all of a sudden they start to open up because there's a connected, there's a relatedness there.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden that the very macro becomes very micro.
Absolutely. When you realize, like the old saying goes, when you realize your shit don't stink, okay, yeah. We all know that here. So let's go on and let's move, take action, move to somewhere else. It's still going to stink over there. But again, just some basic concepts. Poop
And I
stinks.
just, I mean, they're my one word for 2021, you know, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I think that they're garbage. I would rather do commitments. I would rather, you know, and whatever somebody does is entirely them. But you know, you got me onto the one word because I didn't have one. But my one word for this year's disruption.
Yeah,
Everywhere in my world, I'm disrupting what it looks like, my industry, my writing, my talent, my ability, my skills, masterminds, any of that is going to be disrupted because I don't know what it's going to look like. And that's the beautiful part. But you got to be at a stage in your development and want that. And then you know, which like, I don't know who the person that said this, but what you seek, you will find.
absolutely.
Is
Well, you
it,
know,
is it all within us to begin with? I think so. But until we have that, you know, until we have that blind spot filled up by somebody, we don't even know it's in our existence, you know.
well, you know, it's funny
And
that the disruption. I mean, like you know, you had a trip to California. I mean, we could use that as an excuse. Oh, can't do nothing. I mean, like we have ways, and I never have tried to pre-upload anything and do what I did the other day, but I was like, I could have told you, Brian, I can't do it. It can't be done. I was
yeah,
like, F it. I'm going to try to do this. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to figure out if I can do it and have it post the same time at our show. I mean, so, you know, like I said, we're going to show up. And I love that we've made that commitment and we're still living life along with it. And Tracy says, great word,
oh,
Brian.
thank you, Tracy, thank
And
you.
then you guys are deep
Wow,
today. Love it.
yeah,
All
love
I
it.
can say
All I
is
can say is
trust.
trust that God has. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
and see, Tracy, I found that from life experiences that going deep is not for everybody, but the more you've been through in life, that's where the gold is. That's where the fulfillment is. That's where you make a difference in your world and in other people's world by going deep. Because everything is so surface level this day and age. People really don't get to know each other.
and you know, I'll admit something. I've read some books, and some books I have half read because shit. And I'm gonna go back, and I'm like gotta get into this bookshelf here. I'm really tearing into my books, you guys, to
Yeah,
reacquaint myself. But I gotta tell you that most of the time, half those books, halfway through, that shit is about taking action and going deep.
yeah.
And that's where people mess up when they buy a book. They read it to and I'm guilty of that. I'm freaking guilty of that. So with a pair of new eyes, you know, I'm looking forward to just going deeper with those things. And you know, it's just like a kid that's told, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. Then he touches it, or he doesn't touch the stove, and he realizes, oh, they keep telling me not to touch the stove. Like, you could be told this, but until you find out the reason and the purpose for it,
Right,
you're not going to not touch the stove,
right.
because most people are conditioned to know why this is it, but not the truth and the facts of why you shouldn't. You know, they don't they don't tell the whole story all the time. They just get to the punchline, and you got to peel those layers back and, you know, find those answers to why is that so. So
There's two other things that I want to share with everybody when we look at our personal selves and then, you know, in business, is that who we see in the mirror is our only competition. There's nobody telling us that we can't read those books or that we can't do that training, get that degree, go on that trip. We're the only ones that are telling ourselves that. But
we're letting the
obviously, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, and we're only letting the excuses
Yeah.
be and they're
Now,
bullshit excuses.
they're bullshit excuses, but also though it's like if the people that you're surrounding yourself with are propagating those excuses, maybe it's time to disrupt that. As tough as it might be, because you know they don't have an agenda for you. They want you to be in the same agenda they have, which may or may not be anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And with that said,
Tell me why I
and she
shouldn't.
says, well, okay, so there's two different perspective on that. One could be, I'm telling you not to touch the stove because I have a scar from it. Brian could be telling you touch the stove so you could get burnt like I got burnt. That's two
Well,
ways to look at that. You know what I mean?
well,
That's
Tracy, let me share a short little story with you. when I was growing up, I was a little bit of a pyro. Okay, I was about
I
I
could
see
see
Lynn's
that.
eyes, and
Red
it
hair.
was
I can
it
see that.
it was I was mischievous as a kid. I would, I there's a reason why
No.
my parents didn't have number two. Okay, because two of me running around, they would have, that would have just been not good for the world. And when I was a young kid, I was like 10 or 11, and we had this cottage. This My dad built it with his own two hands. I mean, it was, the design of it was in his brain. He didn't have drawings or anything. And we would go up there, and I had a fascination with fire, like putting sticks in fires and doing all of that. And my mom told me, she's like, stay away from that fire. You're going to get burned. On my 13th birthday weekend, we gathered firewood in the daytime that we could put on at night, right? So there was a pile of it. Well, I didn't see that there was a log right in front of me, and I tripped over it, and I braced my hands went in the fire. Okay. And so did I ever do it again? No. And for me, I think that if we make mistakes in life, what do we do with them? Do we repeat them and propagate that? Or does it disrupt us from a standpoint? Yes, we went through pain, but now it's with us forever. It just has that unique way of sticking with us. And whenever we're in moments like that in life, there's just something that in our brain and in our heart or our gut tells us like, hey, you experienced this before. Remember what happened?
Yeah.
And I would rather have something happen once and I never do it again than to have something where I didn't learn anything, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And
Why do they say it, you got to learn the hard way, and lessons are, to be learned, and some people need to learn it.
I mean, like when I was in college, I mean, it's not with me anymore, but did I have to repeat a couple college classes because I fell into the lifestyle? Yes. I'll say that to anybody. But here's the deal is that's where I was 25 years ago or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And it's like, am I proud of it? No, but it was a part of my story.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is that, okay, did I like to drink and, party and all of that? Absolutely. Right.
You're Wisconsinite.
Well, I've seen people party from other states too. So it's, but we have a little bit of an advantage, maybe, maybe a little bit more of a tolerance. But am I afraid to talk about that? No, because it's something I don't do anymore. It's something that I can talk about the stories and whatnot. And did I have to learn? Absolutely. But I would rather learn in that capacity that many years ago, because obviously as you get older, life gets shorter and the opportunities may or may not be there if you continue on with that behavior. And so I'm glad that I learned it in that period of time, but it was a part of my life that I wouldn't replace for anything because it taught me what I needed to know. Versus like, for instance, my parents were free spirits. They wanted me to experience life and college. And if I got in trouble with the law or whatever, I had to bail myself out. I had to overcome that, right? I would much rather have that so I learn those lessons than to be coddled my whole life and you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
That's just my experience. I don't know what it would be like for somebody where there's high expectations. You go to a certain school, there's a lot of stress on you, and you're not even able to be yourself. I couldn't imagine what that was like because that was never my experience.
Right.
So that's why people, and I'd be willing to say this is that the older you get in life, the repercussions and penalties might get more expensive, So you're a ginger that answer a lot. My son I'm not a ginger actually. I have no red hair on my head. I'm a blonde.
It must be the tint in the it must be the tint in the light.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a
So
ginger. No, I don't have any red hair in my head.
No. It's always the light then.
Yeah. I just the lighting in here, I mean, obviously it's coming from back, but there's not much on my face. But no. Thank you, Julie. I'd like to take credit for being a ginger, but no, I don't have any red hair on my head. Thank you, though.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dirty blonde, and there might be some gray coming through. I really don't know, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's so funny. Look at the time has just gone by, like always.
I know. So yes, please, for everybody that watched, we're so grateful for your sharing and vulnerability and taking your time to be with us today. And if you want to leave your comments or some stories of trust in your lives, we'd love to hear them and comment on them and have an interaction with you. We have a question and action step for you. So the question and action step until we reconvene and join you guys tomorrow and be with you tomorrow is when you look at the best stories in your life, what things are common in them. That's where the lessons pop out. Your best stories. It'd be hard for me to know, or it'd be hard for me to believe that there wasn't similarities, in the ones where they just showed up like your best trust stories. It'd be hard for me to believe that there would not be similarities in there. What about your beard? I don't have a beard.
No, if you grow one in. You've never grown it in.
No, nobody wants to see that anyway, so no.
So was there red in it?
No.
Okay.
No. Any facial hair, I could never do Mountain Man, Paul Bunyan style. No, it's
I
not
wouldn't
my
recognize you. Yeah. No, I like the clean shave.
Be like, Brian, Dollar Shave Club not come this month? Is that what that is?
Oh, I love it.
I can't do that. I gotta, maybe like 2 or 3 or maybe 5 days of growth, and I just get sick of it, and I just don't look like myself, so I have to shave. Yeah.
You're like, I can't identify with myself with the guy in the mirror.
Wearing plaid and big sheep boots, no, I can't do that. So I gotta shave and be clean cut. So.
I love it.
What are your final thoughts, Lynn? Before we leave, what are your final thoughts for today's session?
Final thoughts are the trust thing is just when you realize that if you don't trust yourself and your gut, and you don't trust and willing to trust others, you're not going to ever have a good relationship. Right. Trust is very, very important. And I like the stories we shared of, friendships and the bond, and to be able to accept people in our lives even when we make mistakes, because we're human, having a human experience. Yep. And to learn from those lessons to go on. Yep. And you?
For me, it's continue to push yourself and where you can be uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. You have to get over that hump mentally, known as habit, right? Oh, yeah. The more you condition yourself to be uncomfortable, take a step at a time, like a rung on a ladder, one step at a time, one day at a time. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is that, like the ball analogy, right? Once you get the ball rolling, it's easier to keep going. But you have to own that. Absolutely. Don't rely on anybody else to do it, because I'm sore. Success is not going to end up on your door. Fulfillment's not just going to show up like Amazon delivering a package. Not going to happen. Just like anything you want to be fulfilled with in life, you got to go get it. And right. If you're regimented, disciplined, and willing to do what it takes, sky's the limit.
Absolutely. I love that. Wow, we are done. We will be back tomorrow. And Brian and I are talking about him. It's this weekend, right? Are you there till next week or just this weekend?
No, I'm here for 2 weeks.
Okay. So, just be on alert that we may show up sometime live just randomly, just to be raw and real and to check out the scenery. So I'm excited about that. We might, so in other words, I'm just preempting you and letting you know that you may not get an announcement for that. We just might hit the record button. And I hope you guys enjoyed that little backstage. Did you actually watch the backstage thing yesterday?
I haven't had a chance to.
I kind of started. I was like, gosh, that's a good little reel. That was from like January 4th. So
a month ago. We were recording ourselves. Oh my God.
I know. But anyways, you guys have a good one. We love you.
Thanks, everyone, for watching.
We appreciate you. Bye-bye.